Hey, everybody, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Over Sharon Show, the best darn show on the internet. We have another lovely guest today, but before we get into that, I'm going to read today's quote, and then Sharon, the lovely Sharon, is going to pull a card. Today's quote is, "To love someone means to see them as God intended them." And that's by Dostoevsky.
I love that. Sounds like an Ace of Swords. I feel like we recently pulled something like this, Brandon. Like on you and me talking about stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Ace of Swords is a great card, though, because, swords represent air and ideas and communication. And especially on a podcast, the Ace of Swords is great. The ace is like a beginning of something. And I love how it has that crown there with the light shining out with the sword, because it could also represent the way you've, like, if you found a new idea and now it's your chief new idea, you're like, wow, this idea is great. Look at this. Can't wait to spread it and tell everybody about it.
Nice.
I love
I'm
that.
a Gemini.
Oh, yeah. I'm a Gemini moon.
Oh, nice. I'm an Aries moon.
Okay, cool.
In tropical. I have absolutely no idea. I'm like,
yeah. I know. I'm tropical.
means.
I don't know about sidereal stuff. Sorry.
But I always ask people because I'm like, they're like, oh, what do you know? I'm like, absolutely nothing. I'm just gathering information. I'm just trying to get patterns. Like I don't get it. I don't know, but it's interesting to me. And I had a talk with Michelle about tarot and runes the other day, because one time I had this very intense psychedelic trip. And the message of the trip was like, you can pull a card, you can toss a rune, you can do the I Ching, but you will never know what I have in store for you. Why are you trying to divine what's already divined? And I was like, oh, what? Like, oh, I'm trying so hard to figure it out when there's nothing to figure out. And I talked to her about it because, like, I love what her and what Mario does with symbolic studies and what Chance and Gabriel do. And I was so confused. I was like, the last time I interacted with tarot, this is what happened. Can you help? I know there's something more to it. And she was like, you're just picking out patterns. Like, you're not trying to divine anything. You're not trying to be like, does this person love me? Yes or no? Like, that's not it. It's just an interest in the subconscious. That's about it.
You're so right about the patterns thing.
Yeah. We tell people all the time, it's just a tool and you can use it in different ways. Sure, you can use it for divination if you want, but I feel the best usage of that tool would be self-knowledge, self-examination, going within, or like you said, to look at the different patterns and just get some clarity. When you use it for divination, I think it could tell you what you want to hear sometimes, and you could kind of just justify your actions because you're like, oh, that's what the tarot told me. Or there could be some kind of blind spot you have. Some kind of wounding is causing it, and people might call it like a demon possession or whatever, but it could be showing you a way that's going to lead you to more suffering as well. Not that that's a bad thing. You're still going to learn those lessons, but I think that there's a better way to learn. We love what Fortune Saint Germain said, and we always quote it, where it's like, we're here to learn lessons. You can learn them through suffering or through joy. So Sharon and I try to learn through joy.
Yeah. One thing James and I say is, like, people are like, what should I do? I'm like, flip a coin. And whenever the coin's in the air, you'll know what you actually want. She'll be like, I hope it's tails. I hope it's heads.
I hope it's
like, there. Okay, then there you go. Now you know what's going on. Like, if you're so confused, this or that, just pick one. It doesn't matter. Like, there was a couple years ago, there was a Netflix show, and it was an interactive show, and you clicked to, like, does he
pick a different ending?
Yeah, to pick a different ending. And everyone we know was like doing it. They were like, oh, what ending did you get? What ending did you get? And whenever I was pregnant with James and I just binge watched so much stuff. Like, I'd never watched anime. So we binge watched all the anime stuff, and it was a lot of fun. But we watched this thing and we never chose anything. We never We never picked the outcome. And the movie went through every outcome that it could ever possibly go through. And during this time, we also watched Mr. Nobody. Have y'all seen Mr. Nobody?
Mm-mm.
Y'all got to watch Mr. Nobody. It's great. And the premise of it is like, no matter which path you choose, it's the right path, because that's the path you were supposed to be on. And whenever James and I were driving home, I was like, it feels like my life has been not in my control, and not in like this shit's out of control, but like for some reason I made that, like, James and I met through a mutual friend. And this mutual friend also introduced me to this woman who, we are both Geminis, and we were pregnant at the same time. She came over to tell me she was pregnant, and I had a pregnancy test, and I was like, oh, haha, my boobs hurt. And she was like, take the test. I was like, dude, I'm not pregnant, but whatever, I'll take the test. Took the test. And as soon as I peed on that stick, I was like, I'm pregnant. And she came over to tell me she was pregnant. And she was the first one to be like, oh, you'd be a great doula. Do you know what a doula is? And I had no idea. And so I start looking into doula stuff. And then I find this program, the Matrona program by Wapio Barnett. And I'm like, oh, this seems like a cool program, like transcendental birth. Okay, cool, whatever. And it said you needed to shadow a midwife or a doula. And so I'm like trying to find doulas in my area. And I found this woman in New Orleans, and I call her. I'm like, hey, I need to shadow somebody. Like, this is the program that I want to take. And she was like, oh, that's where I got my certification from. If you picked my name out of a list on Google, like, you're good. You don't have to come shadow me. Like, you're fine. Just go to the course.
Nice.
And I go to the course, and it's all women. That there was one other white woman there, and it's all like these like Black queens that are like, I channeled my ancestors and like spirit drums, and like, I know birth, I know myself. And I was taken aback. And at this time in my life, I had like gauges and dreadlocks and a septum piercing. And I like taught yoga. I was a yoga teacher. I taught yoga at the beginning of the doula class. And we actually traveled to Atlanta for me to take it. And I had a mutual friend that lived, like one of my sister's friends lived like 20 minutes outside of Atlanta. So we were able to stay at her house. And I took this doula course, not realizing that it was a free birth course. Like, I remember Wapio being like, never touch a woman unless she wants you, but like, leave her alone. Birth is a magical, her thing was birth is a spiritual process. That's it. Hands down, it is a spiritual process. And she said she used to take women to Peru to do ayahuasca. And she was like, if you've traveled into that realm, it's very similar to birth. And this was 2 years before I got pregnant with Ja. And I was like, oh, I do psychedelics. Like, I do it. I know what's up. Like, if it's like that, then I'm good. I can guide a woman through anything. And it's so funny because after I had Joffrey and like went through pregnancy and gave birth, I was like, I didn't know a fucking thing. I didn't know. I had no idea. And it's like a man trying to empathize with a woman, or a woman trying to empathize with a man. Like, you don't get it at all. Like, the other day, I was just so exacerbated and frustrated. And I was just like, James gets to be in the woods all day, cutting down trees. Like, I want to be in the wood. Like, oh. And then I thought about what he does as a father and as the head of the house. Like, I'm the head of the home. He's the head of the house. And I was like, I don't want that responsibility. Like, I do not want what that takes. Like, spearheading into the unknown to drive the ship of our family. Like, I'll stick with making bread and making cheese all day. Like I don't want to do that. And so like as my life has unfolded, like looking back on it this morning, I was like, that's so wild. Like I had no idea what I was getting into whenever I was interested in these, like interested in cannabis, interested in mushrooms. Like I used to go to festivals and hula hoop and perform, and like I remember like being at these festivals and being in the woods and being like, what is going on? Like, what is this? And then coming home, like back to reality and going back to college. And I lived with my parents for so long in their pool house. And I would just be like, this sucks. I'd rather be like a rainbow child and be running around in the forest. And I used to be like, I would be like this little elf running around festivals with just like a bag of mushrooms and be like, oh, come on, everybody. Like, it's okay. And I would come home and just be so confused about how we could get these far out views. And it's like, you feel like you know what life is, and then you come down and you're like, but we're in prison and this place sucks. Like everyone's so mean. And I feel like that's because you're not integrating what you've learned in high states. And you can do it through meditation. Like it doesn't have to be through psychedelics or any of this stuff. You can do it through just gardening. You can do it through just being a good person and seeing what life really is, where it's like we're all just hanging out together. It doesn't have to be so like like someone's coming to get me, or on the other hand, like I just have to be high all the time. Like there's this song and it says, I don't need the drugs you take just to feel the spirit move. And that I like a lot, because I'm like, yeah, you know, like everybody, like what we were talking about earlier, like we're given medicine in this life through being here, through herbs, through mushrooms, through plants, but people want more. They want LSD, DMT, ABCD. They want like, I'm a part of this organ, like I'm a part of this church and you don't even understand. Like we speak in tongues, like I know it. I know God, but in order for you to know God, you got to come here. Or on the other hand, it's like, oh, you don't need any of that. Like people want to be in camps because it feels secure and safe.
Wow.
Rather than like, where God comes to us through our food. It comes in so many different ways. Like you can feel the spirit move just being alive.
Being quiet.
Being quiet. But if everything's so loud, you need the huge input. You need the big trip. You need the speaking in tongues in a big church. Like, and that's that person's life. Like I probably like a week ago, I was so confused in myself because I was like, I just don't understand why these people don't want to do this. Like they don't want to come out here and garden and like do the work, and I'm doing the work. And they're in the cities and I'm like, why? What? It was really intense. And then I realized, I was like, oh, you know, I'm now on spiritual high grounds because I'm like, oh, I freaking garden. Like I'm making cheese. What are you guys doing? And I was like, dude, that's not their role. Like if I find fulfillment through this, then I find fulfillment through this. Like some people are fulfilled and that is their role, to be in the city, to be doing those things. Absolutely. And that's fine. Yeah. But as soon as I start looking at somebody else's grass, then I'm not even thinking about what's going on here. Like then my home gets messy and my kids are having weird tantrums. And it's like, because I'm not fully in the presence that is God's gift to me, which is what I'm doing.
Your energy. Absolutely. And we talk about this all the time. We've recently been talking about the stuff you're saying. It's so awesome. Oh, the synchronicities.
Yeah.
Amazing. But we have not introduced you.
So. Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody.
I love it. I love it. We started oversharing before we even introduced the guest. And so today we have Elise of Family Fungi. She's James' wife. And we wanted to talk to her just in general about life, beautiful life, her experiences, her journey, her spiritual path, her cosmology or worldview as it is. We never know. Things could change. Sometimes we come to different things. Oh, hi, baby.
This is
hi,
Joffrey.
Boy.
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Joffrey.
They're saying hi. You gonna sit here while I talk? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so we want to talk to her about birth keeping. She was telling us some interesting stuff earlier about some bowling lanes that got sold. Very interesting stuff. Just life, how things are changing. They're building a second level, I think. So yeah, so we're here to chit chat and explore these amazing topics. So without further ado.
Hey everybody. I'm Elise. I am a birth keeper, a birth witness. I sit with women. I offer myself to them in whatever way that they need. So if that's sitting with them through their pregnancy or as they're birthing or even postpartum, I cook meals. I offer nutritional advice, I guess. And my view of birth is wholly spiritual. It is something that I believe, as a maiden, you go through the rite of passage of being a mother, and in the liminal stage from maiden to mother, you're pregnant. And so that's another initiatory state. That's another rite of passage. And then you give birth, rite of passage, holy, and then your postpartum time. And then all that comes after that. And it's a different way of seeing birth rather than like, so you have your medical viewpoint of birth, and then you have like birth is a physiological event. It is something so natural that happens with women. And then even deeper than that, you have birth is a holy spiritual thing. And I think that your mindset, your mentalism, your mind, all is mind.
Yes.
It all comes through, I think, especially when you're pregnant and giving birth, because it's such a, I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
No worries.
The word that comes to mind is soft. Like it's such a soft time. It's such a
tender.
Yes, exactly. Like when you're pregnant, you walk yourself through all of the parts within yourself. Everything is new. You have to give up who you thought you were. The body you've had for X amount of years is changing. No longer who you've built up as, I'm Elise. This is who I am. Changes. All of it.
Yeah.
And so you have to so through the liminal stage of pregnancy, like you're being walked through those hallways within yourself, like the cleansing that is what most women experience as first trimester nausea. That is, it's like, I view it as almost like when you purge before you do a psych, or like as you're in a psychedelic trip, or you have a dieta before you do these meditations and stuff. That's how I view the nausea, because it's like, all right, something in you's got to get out. Wow. And it might be something up here. It might not click. Your nausea might not go away until it clicks within you, whatever it is. And what I always tell women, first things first, you're not broken. But if you think you're broken, then you're going to have some things to fix. 100%. And whenever I was pregnant with Ja, we had gotten a Berkey. And on the box of the Berkey, it says purified the natural way. And that was my throw up box. And it was so funny because this was the last day that I threw up. I was looking at the box and I was like, oh God. Like at one, I just felt like a mother bird where I just like opened my mouth. Like I stopped resisting. I stopped being like, I can't believe I feel nauseous now. Like, oh geez. I was just like,
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I looked at the box, purified the natural way. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what this is.
Amazing.
I had to get some stuff out. And it was all mental. Like I had to get out that I was like, I had to get out a part of the victim mentality that I was like, oh, poor pitiful me. I'm just so, oh, geez.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I
it's like,
love that.
You
so
can
go ahead.
Go. No, you go.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask you when you mentioned that, because I've never experienced that myself, because I've never been pregnant long enough to experience that. But I wondered, because I mean, I don't think everybody experiences the first trimester purging like that. I know some women don't. So that's why I wanted to ask you, like, do all women or do some? And it makes sense. Like if you have something to purge before you have this baby, then you're going to purge, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
And so like with Emmanuel, I didn't get sick at all. Like the one time that I felt even remotely nauseous was my first trimester with him. Please don't press that, baby. My first trimester with him was during Hurricane Ida, and we lost power for 2 weeks, and I had to clean out our freezer, and we had like I had Joffrey's placenta in the freezer. Yeah, I had like duck heads and livers and feet and like just the weirdest parts of animals in the freezer, and I was seriously just like, oh, I don't even, I was like, from dust to dust, you're going. People are like, did you bury it? I was like, yeah, in a landfill. Like it got buried. It's in the earth, 100%. I was not sifting through my defrosted organ meats to try and find it. Blessed be. And like, that's where you get with like holding trauma in or being like, oh, like I could feel really bad for that. But I don't, because I'm like, when am I gonna? It's not like it went into biohazard containment, sold to China. Like it's fine. It's I know exactly what landfill that it's in.
That's so awesome.
So yeah, and then like the different like hormonal stages, the different emotional stages that you get in through birth. I think that's all a part of. Oh, I know. Please don't do that, baby. I know that that's all part of the changing within for yourself, for the woman to go through the rite of passage into motherhood. Hold on one second.
Yes.
No problem. We'll do a commercial. Thank you guys for checking out the Over Sharon show. You can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com. If you want more, click on the Over Sharon tab, and you can Over Sharon support us to your heart's content.
And shout out to the chat.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. How you guys doing? Just so you know, every Thursday night at 8:33 p.m. we premiere these, and we hang out in the chat. 8:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is. I know you guys have your crazy different times and stuff. I don't know why you just can't get on board with the correct New York time like
why
me.
Not? Yeah.
I was going to say, this is super interesting though. Like, I love it.
Me too. I'm learning about. I've heard Elise talk about these topics before. Elise has been on Crow.
Yeah.
She's been on different, she was talking about Michelle earlier, and Michelle is from Michelle's Healing Home, and that's another podcast that Michelle recently started, and she has some products that she makes from her own garden and stuff like that. So Michelle's stuff is lovely, and but you've been on that show, you've been on Crow. And so, we've heard some of these topics before, but we're going to dive deeper than, I don't know. we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. And I've gotten more comfortable.
Yay, I'm so glad.
Being on, like, Crow was my first show ever. And I had bullet points, and I was like, oh, chill. And it's just so funny because you feel like you have to perform. Yeah. And you're like, oh, life is a whole performance. Like, we're all, you can act like you got so many hats, or you can just come as you are. Just be in your individuated, beautiful, spirited self. And like that's, you know, you can link that to birth as well. And it's like, what needs to unfold for you? I don't know that. So like, I had a woman be like, what should I do? And I was like, what do you think you should do? I can't tell you. You want to know what I would do? Okay. But that won't help you. You don't have the experiences that I have. You don't have the mindset that I have, not good or bad. It's just like my mind's different. And so
everyone is different. So everyone will have different paths and different choices that they make. And like you were saying earlier, like any path that you choose is okay. It's like we talk about on the show a lot. Like if you're living according to the golden rule, like you don't have to worry. Just pick what feels natural to you, pick what feels comfortable for you, and go. It's not going to be a bad thing. It's just going to happen. It's going to work.
At the beginning of being a mother, I had no one. Like, I have my mom and like my grandmother, but they don't see life as I do. And it's hard when you're in a community that doesn't see birth as an initiation, as a rite of passage, and doesn't honor it as that. Like, you can have a baby shower, or you can have a blessing way. A baby shower, people just bring you shit for your baby. A blessing way, people honor the mother. And
I've never heard this.
Oh my gosh. I've never heard best. This. I've put them on.
Oh, wow.
Never had them done for me. Whenever I was pregnant with Manu, I didn't have any. I always say this. I'm like, I don't have any friends. And it's like, my friends just are far away.
Yeah.
There's not many people here that do what I want. Yeah. And not like do what I want, but it's like you don't even know what a blessing way is. Like, you don't even know how to enter a ceremonial space. And so blessing way, the mother is on up however she wants to come, wherever it's set up. And women dote on her, like braid her hair, massage her feet, go through how I've done it is like going through the elements. So like water, you wash the feet, earth, flower crowns, like air, incense, all that jazz. But you just massage her. You give, what do you need? What do you need? Well, I need to talk about this, or I need food. I need food. That's always, I'm like, food. That's where I get, because at some point, like you, especially postpartum, like that was my postpartum with Emmanuel was not at all. Now I know. I'm like, oh, okay. So postpartum, I don't want to get out of bed for anything. I want food brought to me 24/7, 100%. And so I'm going to need to, yeah, exactly. I'm going to need to, it's so funny. After I gave birth to him, I was just sitting there. I did it in the bathroom, and I was sitting there, and James was like, all right, what do you need? And I was like, bring me a bowl of grapes. And I was just like, eating them, and he was just chilling. And it's so funny because I can't imagine it any other way. And so as I always get people that are like, oh, but okay, so you give birth at home, and like, what if something happens? And I'm like, okay, what if something happens? What's going to happen? They're like, well, like, what if you die? I'm like, I don't know. Then I die.
Then I die. I was meant to go that way, that day, that moment.
What if I die at a hospital? Oh, well, you know, that's like not gonna, oh yeah, dude, no, it's 100% still happens. Like, and that's where I like to go with people is, this is how I put it in the most simplest of terms. Don't go into a diet trying to figure out your cheat days, because that's not going to work. Like, I always have people that are like, oh, you know, like I'll eat good, and then on Sundays I'll have a whatever. And I'm like, then why do it? Why go into birth thinking about how you're going to bleed to death? I get it. Explore your mind. Go for it. Like, whenever I was pregnant with Ja, I had 3 separate dreams that I bled out and died. And I was like, that's wild. Like, I don't know what God has in store for me. I can't, you know, if I remember asking James, like, because he went to school for nursing and then went for micromolecular biology. James is very smart. And I'm like, all right, so I hemorrhage, I'm bleeding. What are you going to do? And he was like, call 911. What do you mean? What am I going to do? And this was whenever I was pregnant with Ja. So I've learned a lot since then. But it's just funny because it's like, I can't save you. Yeah. I can't save you. What do you?
People giving into their fears. And it's like, okay, explore your fears. Like, let them come and see where they're at, and maybe just let them go. Learn to let them go.
Yeah. So with Manu, I didn't take a pregnancy test. I didn't go to see anyone. I didn't have a midwife. I didn't have a doula. I just was hanging out pretty much the whole time.
That's awesome.
And
like you would have like 500 years ago or something, you know what I mean? Like,
but you would have had other women there.
Right.
That's what I see. Like, I was talking to some women, we're part of a homeschool co-op, and I was talking to them, and I was like, yeah, I free birth Manu, but I wouldn't do it again. And they were like, what? And I was like, I wouldn't get tests done. I wouldn't go to a doctor. I wouldn't go to a midwife, but I'd have other women there.
Yeah.
I'd have someone there. Like, I gave birth at around 10 o'clock. James didn't get to bed till 4, cleaning up the bathroom. Like, I don't want that. Whenever I gave birth with Ja, I had a midwife and her assistant, and they cleaned up we lived in like a studio pool house at my parents' house. And they cleaned up everything. Cleaned up the pool, cleaned up the bathroom, brought me some broth, like, whole thing. And we just got to lay in bed together with our baby. So I'm like, oh, okay. I see the importance of the village.
You've seen both sides.
Yeah. And I'm glad I did the free birth, because I am now honing in more of what I desire and what I desire within a community. Like, back to the blessing way thing. Like, I remember being so sad that I didn't have women around me to throw me a blessing way. And James was like, you make your own blessing way. And I was like, that's the point. I want like other people here.
Someone doubting on me. Damn it.
Like, and I mean, he massages my feet. He does the whole thing, but there's something about having other women there.
Yeah.
And I had followed the Free Birth Society for a while and saw that one thing that they implement are village prenatals. So they, which is great. Like, you just get women together that are pregnant and you just talk and hang out. And that's your prenatal. You don't have to have someone checking all up on you and figuring out.
Feeling all up on you. And
yeah, there's nothing to figure out. Like, but whenever I was pregnant with Emmanuel, and I'd have like thoughts of, okay, what if something's wrong? I'd go about it in my head. I'd be like, okay, so if this was wrong, like my stomach hurt, like up top. And I was like, oh my God, what could that be? Like, your mind always goes to extremes. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do? I'd go to the hospital, go to the gynecologist or whatever. Then they'd probably want to insert something inside of me. And then they'd probably want to take an ultrasound. And they would tell me that everything's fine. 100%. Like, that's always where, like, I do the mental gymnastics. Like, whenever I had Joffrey, we slept in bed with him from day one. And my sister is a NICU nurse. And my mom has friends. One's a labor and delivery doctor, and one is a paramedic. And they all just hounded me. They were like, why do you want to kill your baby? Why do you want to die? Why are you doing that? Like, why are you doing this? And I was like, what? Doing what? Doing what I know I can do? Like doing what the creator has made me to do? Why am I doing that? Because I have faith in God. And they'd be like,
absolutely.
Oh,
yeah, they don't have
I go to church and I'm like, I don't care where you go. I don't care. Like it's something so the faith that you have within yourself is so strong. And it's not faith, you know it. You know it in your bones. It's
an internal knowing. Like it's an instinct like the animals probably have. It's just an instinct that we haven't remembered. We have to relearn how to listen to our instinct.
Yes.
Yeah. And this really reminds me of what we talked about last week with Woodshop. It hasn't aired yet for you, Elise, just so you know. We just recorded with him yesterday, but he was talking about how when a person starts to kind of, elevate their consciousness, or they move up to the next level, or even if they're doing like they change something or they quit drinking or whatever, people around them are always like hounding them and giving them a hard time about it because they see somebody else that's raising up and they feel bad about themselves. So then they try to pull the other person back down. And not like we're, judging. They're probably looking out for your safety. That's how they're kind of viewing it. But it's that same thing because it means if you have a child all by yourself, then everything in their paradigm is totally wrong, so.
It's another level of radical responsibility, radical self-responsibility. Right? So we don't take our children to the pediatrician. We don't do any of that. And it's like, if something is wrong, if something were to happen, it's all on you. And a lot of people want to put the blame on someone else. Like, oh, my doctor did it. My doctor told me I had to get the emergency C-section and I did it. And it's all there. Like they did it to me. And that's trauma. And nothing's ever done to you. You elect for it. You do it yourself. And so it's a lot of
victim consciousness.
Yes. And it's a lot of people don't want to take that in. They don't want the responsibility. They want to say your food made me sick. Well, why aren't you making your own food? Well, because it's hard. I'm like, dude, go buy a chicken, make chicken nuggets. It's not that hard. I do it all the time. Like it amazes me. It just amazes me what people do. I'm like, I don't understand. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. I guess it is hard.
Fear of the unknown.
Yes, exactly. And that's where you have to like take the leap and be like, oh, whatever happens, God's got me. Like if I'm supposed to die, I'm supposed to die. Exactly. But it's so weird because you say it, but at the same time, you're not. Like women always tell me, well, what if something happens? What if I die? I'm like, you are going to die. A part of you is 100% going to die. You have to let that part go so that you can step through the threshold of my birthing, not company, like my birthing thing
group
is, like it's called the Great Mother Birth Works. And it's because you step into the role of the Great Mother, that archetype that you have to leave the maiden behind. You have to leave the girl behind. She'll always be there within you, but but actually, no, like she won't always be there. She changes
as a past version of yourself.
Yes. And she transforms, she alchemizes into the Great Mother. Like you roar your babies in, like you take responsibility while you're pregnant. You have the conscious conception. And throughout your stages of pregnancy and birth and postpartum, and then dealing with all the changes that happen when you have kids, you're constantly like, it's all a ritual. It's all a sacred act. And if you don't see it as that, then it becomes so overwhelming because you don't feel like you're doing holy work. You feel like you're doing just the most mundane, awful things. The one thing I love about Michelle's Healing Home had Rachel Maiden on, and Rachel's studying Druidry. And she said, the magic is in the mundane. And I was like, oh.
The daily.
Yes.
The stuff you just do.
It's yes, because in those moments, you become closer and closer to the creator. And like James and I always joke about how before kids, we were like meditating, doing yoga, like, oh, wow, yeah, I can like totally vibe and control my own impulses and emotions. And then we had children, and it broke us open in ways that we had no idea. Like, I thought I had all my shit figured out. I thought that I knew, whenever strong emotions come up, what do? You take a deep breath, you breathe through them, you channel the energy, you Tai Chi them. And then like this morning, I feel so bad, but like the baby was crying and Joffrey was just like, oh, and I was like, oh, I couldn't take it. It was so, and as soon as I let the scream out, I was like, whoa, I got way too charged just now. Like I couldn't, for some reason, I let my conscious mind slip, and I don't know how I did that. And and that happens, like people think it's so funny, like, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to, my husband, I'm like, I don't know why it's like a meme, like, you don't have to push this baby out. You don't know what it's like. Give me a hamburger. You don't even know. And I'm like, dude, this is your responsibility as a woman. Like, your husband is there to support you and to be like the strength, not be the strength, you're the strength, but be almost like the pillar, be the house that holds the home. And when you get into this mentality of like, I'm doing such hard work, I can do whatever I want. Like, okay, now you're just, now you're unconscious. Now you're allowed. Like, whenever I was pregnant, people would always be like, just eat the French fries. And I'd be like, okay, Satan, like, we all know this isn't good for you. But because I'm having cravings for like fat, crunchy, you're like, just eat it. Like, I would get so mad at my mom because that was her. And I would be like, I'm making my own French fries. And I went home and I made sourdough buns. I got burgers and made cheese. I made my French fries. And everyone would be like, oh, Elise, you're so ridiculous. And I'd be like, you're eating poison. Like, you're literally eating poison, but you just want mouth feels. You have such a mouth fixation that you can't help yourself. You have to just shove it all in. And and that's like, whenever people go to a hospital, it's not, I don't think they realize that what they're doing is just allowing someone else to shove it all in them. And like, if that's your path, that's your path. By all means, go for it. I've just seen what I've seen in hospitals. And I know that at some point you just turn off and you're like, check me. Just check me. What is everything okay? How's the baby? Like, you've lost your intuition. You've lost your connection with the creator and with your baby. Instead of you knowing where your baby is sitting inside of you, you want someone else to tell you. And it's fear as well. Like, well, what if I'm wrong? What if my baby's breech? What if the feet are first? And it's like, okay, what if the feet are first? What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to turn my baby. So you think your baby doesn't know what's going on. Well, it's a baby. How could it know? Look at ears. I always go to ears because I'm like, ears are so divinely created. And like, your baby did that. You gave your baby just fat and vitamins and like I don't know, all the other stuff that you and your placenta give it. And then your baby made its own ear. Like, that's what happened. Your baby made its whole being. And for some reason, you think that it's broken and someone else has to fix it, or that something's wrong with your baby. And there are instances where things do go wrong. And I don't know what that's about. My first instinct is like, what's your diet like? What's your lifestyle like? What's your mind like? How are you going about your pregnancy? How are you going about your birth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you dealt with your traumatic experiences?
Yes, because they will come up.
Mm-hmm.
I remember whenever I was pregnant with Ja, I was telling my midwife, I was like, oh, I heard that birth just breaks you open. So I'm just going to like let everything break open in birth. And she was like, you should really deal with your shit before you give birth because it'll all manifest 100%. And it did. Like I didn't have a bad birth with Ja, but I was impatient. I was very impatient. I didn't know what was happening. And I had medical midwives to where they were like, you want to break the back, like you seem really tired, what's going on? And I feel like if I would have had someone there to be like, you're good, you're fine, you're just having a baby, like this is just your journey and that's okay, then I think it would have been a lot different. And I see how now Ja, as a 3.5, he'll be 4 in August. I see how my impatience and my doubting through my pregnancy has manifested within him. And he's not a bad kid, but I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah, like I was nervous. I didn't know what was going on. I was confused within myself. So.
Are you muted, Sharon?
Yes, I was. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I do that too.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, great. That's awesome stuff. It's a lot of the stuff that we in general terms talk about, fear of the unknown, just letting things be, walking your path, just no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you said really reminds me of when you are in a psychedelic trip and you kind of start freaking out and people try to help you. If they were just saying, you're just doing mushrooms, man, it's fine. Like you're just dealing with shit, instead of saying, oh, how can we help this person? What are we going to do? It kind of just feeds into that. It's an energy, I think, that comes into the area or the space.
Yeah. I always say, don't kid yourself that you're not doing drugs. And don't kid yourself that you're not actually like partaking in some medicine. But if you go into it with, I'm partaking in some medicine, then why are you so sick? Why do you need the medicine? Like, are you okay? Something wrong? No, I just got some things that I'm like trying to figure out. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, cool. No judge. I mean, I'm fine. I love it. I love mushrooms. They've truly brought me to where we are now. Like that's why James and I are together. For some reason, we both had a deep connection with the mushroom and it brought us together. Our relationship wholly feels divine because there were so many things, like we just really had to rub each other's edges off. Like we really came into the relationship in like super hippy dippy, like, oh, it's all love, baby. We're just hanging out. What's up? Like, cool. And we had to go through, oh, not this. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. We stuck with each other through the whole thing. And it was hard. And but now we know the depths of each other's souls and we know the darkness within. And we know where our weaknesses are. Like I am more prone to pity parties and a victim mentality. And, his shadows are his shadows, but I know mine. And I'm like, oh, I'm in a pity party right now. And it feels so good. I love pity parties. I'm like, oh yeah. And that's so crazy because then you see how intoxicating it is. And you're like, oh, no. That's not the way I want to go about this. But every time I get in those mindsets, I'm reminded of like, oh, whoa, it feels so good to be so bad. And that always amazes me because like anger is a big one that feels so intoxicating. Like a lot of people can't separate the thoughts from the emotions. And so they're just in it. Let me get this baby. I don't know if y'all can hear him, but he's having a tough time.
Oh, no, it's fine.
No worries.
Oh, man, this is so cool.
Yeah, it's great to have that perspective because I feel like that's what a relationship, I've heard people say that it's like the ultimate form of shadow work when you're with somebody else if you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, having just a direct mirror, it you see such depth. It's like mandala work. I don't know if y'all have ever like meditated on a mandala, but it's like you stare at the center and everything just starts changing around. Yeah, exactly. And everything just starts changing around and you just keep steadfast in the center of yourself, in the center. And so that's where the mirror work comes in, the shadow work, having that person that you're like, all right, we're not going to leave one another. We're going to do this, be married. We're going to do the whole thing. And let's go on this journey hand in hand. And that's like, I'm so grateful for James because whenever I first got pregnant with Ja, I went to the hospital at first. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm pregnant. Like there's a natural birthing center. So I went to the natural birthing center and they had midwives there. And I had two meetings with this midwife who was so sweet. And the second one, I just started crying. And she was like, oh, you're just pregnant, crying. Like, oh, what's going on? And I was like, I don't want to be here. And she's like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't want to be here. It's so sterile. The lights are so bright. I'm not even showing. I don't need this. And I was just so upset with myself because I had to find the strength to be like, no. And she told me, she's like, you can do it. I just watched a video of this woman that had a birth in her tiny house. You can do it. I'm just going to put that you're going to come to your next appointment. I'm just going to schedule you. Don't show up. Don't answer any of the calls. You're fine. And
that's amazing that she told you that.
She's so
like,
sweet.
Just amazing your journey with like these people that you encountered all telling you the same thing. Like
if you look for life, life will, like, if you stare into the void will stare back. If you stare into life will give back to you.
Wow.
And then, okay, so here we get into the initiation, the rites of passage. Every woman has to go through this because I remember being like, James, how am I going to tell my family? They're going to be so upset with me that I'm having a home birth. Like, this is not going to go well. And he was like, you think you're the first one? Do you think you're the first woman that's going to have a home birth and people don't like it? Like women have, hey, you're fine. Like, yeah, it's going to suck. And I did it. And it was awful. I didn't like any part of it. And so constantly you're having to face your own strength. Like, are you going to whimper down and be like, oh no, I don't want to tell the truth. I don't want to tell the truth because I don't want to rock the boat. Like everything's fine. It's like, okay, so now you're faced with it in life. What are you going to do? Are you going to just succumb to like, I'm just going to go to the hospital because no one else believes in me, but I believe in me. It's like, all right, you're about to get medically raped, 100%. Or are you going to stand up for yourself, stand up for the truth and for the creator and be like, no, I can do this. So it comes with your pregnancy. Are you going to just eat the French fries? Just or are you going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that? Are there no healthy options here? Like, is everyone blind to food at all? Okay. All right, fine. I'll just stay at home and I'll cook my own meals. All right. And then your birth. And then your postpartum. Can you tell people, no, don't come in? I don't want anyone in here. I'm in such a sacred time. No one's allowed in. You're only allowed in if you bring me food and you're not touching my baby. Can you do that? And then with your children, can you stand up to the other people around you? We're not having that cupcake. It's just a cupcake. Let him live. Like, I make cupcakes all the time at home. I know what's in them. I just made brownies and ice cream. It was delicious. It was too good. James and I ate like 3 brownies last night after the kids went to sleep. It was so good. Okay. You have
That's
to
how you
firm.
Live it up. You make your own.
Yeah.
And you know what's in it.
I'm not trying to strip sweets or childhood. Like let him play on the soccer team. Like let him go. Like he doesn't have to go to school. Okay, y'all are gonna homeschool, but like let him do the sports thing. And I'm like, I know what I did on my community soccer team. I remember getting put in there. That's where I met my first lesbian. Like it's so funny because I'm like, my job is to keep my children as innocent as I can for as long as I can. I'm not going to put them in places and spaces where I think that would be jeopardized. Well, the world's going to show them. Yeah, the world will show them. The natural world will show them more than I could ever teach them. Like Joffrey goes and runs around in the woods with Papa. He loves it. He has so much fun. And he learned, like we got him a little snake flip book so he can learn snakes because it's really warm here. Like right now it's probably 75, 80 outside. And I've, so back to the whole like standing up for what you believe in. Like I've had to had conversations with my parents. I've had to, like, the first homeschool co-op that we went to was in a church. It was like put on by a church. And I was like, okay, you know, I vibe more with these morals than like just random people. So let me go. We go to this church. It was so great. Like their homeschool philosophy was really great. But I'm looking at all the people and they're all overweight. And I'm like, okay, that's a red flag for me. Mm-hmm. And then they allow, all right, now the kids can go into the playroom where all the food is. It's like Funyuns and ice cream and Coke. And I'm like, oh, obviously. And my mom's like, that's such a great homeschool group. Oh, are you going to sign them up? I was like, no, I'm not going to sign them up. Well, why? Well, all the women are overweight and they're letting their kids eat trash. But like, they have a good homeschool outlook. And I'm like, but they're not following God. Their body is not their temple. Their body is a piece of trash now. Okay. So now you want me to tell my child it's okay to look like that? It's okay to be like that? It's not. You're not taking care of yourself. And that same thing with Bert. Like everyone would always tell me like, oh my gosh, you don't even look pregnant. You look like from the back, you couldn't even tell you were pregnant.
What's so wrong with that?
Because it's like, oh, I gained 40 pounds while I was pregnant. Women always go to looks. I gained so much weight while I was pregnant. Okay, well, what were you eating while you were pregnant? I'm all about eating. I love eating. I love food. That's why I do what I do, is because I'm like, I want a grilled cheese. I want brownies. I want cookies. Like I love food. But I don't eat trash. I make all of our food. My children don't eat trash. And when you start putting these things in your body, you are that which you eat. And when after I gave birth to Joffrey, my mom was like, "Oh wow, you really got back to your pre-pregnancy weight so fast. Just wait till you have your second one. You're not going to go back that fast." And I was like,
why do people have to be so negative?
I don't know. Like people are so. It's because they like people. People like to just poke because they've been poked so much. Mm-hmm. And like my mom's mom was like a pageant woman. She like restricted eating and like did all these things. And so I get it. And then I have our second kid. And after I did my closing of the bones ceremony, so like you open up, you give birth, everything's so wide. And there's a ceremony called the closing of the bones. And you wrap the woman from head to toe and like close her off energetically. So maybe 6 months after I gave birth, I did my closing of the bones, honored myself as a mother. And then it was like overnight, I lost the baby weight. And it was so interesting because it literally was like it was overnight. I went through this initiation, this rite of passage, and like the bloating was gone, the circles were gone. And
It's amazing.
And I go and see my mom and I'm like, what you gonna say now? Wait till my third kid? Like, no, I just treat myself with so much respect. And I know that I know the initiations. I know the rites of passage. I know that whenever you're pregnant, you're going through so much and you're expanding and getting more full. And you've never felt this before. And the emotions that come, the waves, it's like you're just riding on it. And sometimes they crash over you. You feel like you're drowning. But as long as you have, and that's why I really have an emphasis on community and women, because only we know what this really is. Only we know the initiation. And some women don't even realize it until I tell them, like, oh, did you have a closing of the bones? Did you have a blessing way? Were you honored as a mother after you gave birth? Did someone come up to you with frankincense and myrrh, with alms, and be like, oh, thank you, welcome? After women tell me they give birth, I'm like, welcome to the other side. Hey, that was a crazy ride, huh? It keeps going. Like it just keeps on keeping on, but you can do it. You can do it. It's so, like my mom told me, the loneliest years of a woman's life are the first 2 years after she gives birth. She was like, I was around other women. I went back to work. I had kids, like friends' kids that were the same age as y'all. And I still felt so lonely. And that's just how it is. And I was like, I don't think so. I agree. It's very lonely because you don't have the community. I was like, Mom, did anyone honor you? Did anyone call you a mother? Like, oh, or did they just come take your baby? Did they just come say like, oh, let me take your baby. Oh, ha, 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 you get some rest. And your bones are aching because you don't want your baby taken, but you want food. And so instead of them cooking for you and cleaning your house, they took your baby and they sat on the couch with your baby while you got up and you cooked your food and cleaned your house. Is that what happened? Most of the time, that is what happens. Like, especially with that generation. And it's so set, like I think about sleeping with my babies. Like from day one, Ja was in the bed with us. And I was told, do not sleep with your baby in the bed. You're going to roll over him and suffocate him.
That's retarded and ridiculous.
Hilarious. And whenever I hear stuff like this, I view it as a news headline. And I'm like, mother suffocates baby sleeping in bed. And I'm like, oh, that's not my that's not my newspaper. That might be your newspaper. That's not my newspaper. And like recently with Manu, I'm like, Joffrey sleeps next to me. So we sleep on a futon mattress on the floor. And James sleeps on a yoga mat with like a mattress topper. He's such a trooper. He's so great. And so James is on a yoga mat, and then it's Joffrey, me, and then Emmanuel. And I'm like nursing Manu, just cuddling, like, and it's now this time around, I'm recognizing the hormones that come in. So I'm like laying with my baby, like smelling them, just like, oh, geez. Oh. And I can feel all the hormones come, and I feel all the emotions, and I feel myself get so high. And I'm like, oh my God, like I love him. And I've reflected on other women, and I'm like, whoa, you've been told to put your baby in a bassinet or a crib, and you don't get this. Yeah. Like you don't feel this level of love and this depth of, and on the same side of it, it's pain, because you're like, I love you so much. Like, oh, it almost hurts. And some women don't. It's so funny. My sister, she put her baby in a crib, and she was like, I put my baby in a crib so I could get more sleep, but I'm up all night looking at the monitor. And I'm like,
then what's the point?
What? Like, I sleep so sound knowing that everyone's safe and breathing next to me. Like, I don't have to look at a monitor and be like, okay, the chest is moving. Like, I know that everyone's fine.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that, in one thing that I really don't like within the free birth movement or the natural birth movement is like, take your power back. The man took it from you and take it back. I'm like, y'all gave it up Women are the ones that bring people into the world. Women are the ones that raise them. You raise men. Or like the father raises the men, the women raise the boys, whatever. I'm like, you, for some reason, you got so psyopted to think that giving birth in a hospital was better for you. You got so, your mind was taken, and now you're trying to blame someone else for it. You're trying to blame the man, blame the medical industrial complex. Like, no, you did it. You gave your baby away. You bought the $1,000 crib. Why? Like, we went to an antique shop and there was such a cute crib there. And I was like, if I put my baby in a crib, I'd get this crib. And it's just so funny because I'm like, no one's sleep. We're all in the same bed, pretty much. And that's fine. Like, we've tried to get Ja to sleep in his own bed a couple times and he doesn't want to. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I like sleeping with Papa. Like, I like cuddling. I love these things. And as adults, we're like, oh, cuddle, puddle, like, oh, ha, ha, ha. But then at some point, you cut yourself off to the love, and you're like, go sleep in your own bed. I'm done. It breaks my heart. But I'm also like, you did it. Like, you did it to yourself. And that's okay. Like, for some reason, you wanted that. Like, you liked the drama. And this is something that James and I have been talking about recently. It's like some people just love. I used to be this way. And sometimes I still am. Sometimes I'm just like, I'll try and pick a fight with James. And he's like, why are you picking a fight with me? And I'm like, I have no idea. You're right. That's ridiculous. That's so silly of me to do this. And like, some people just thrive on drama. And so when there's no drama around, they create it. And I think that's how things manifest. Like, not even like sicknesses or like your kid throws a tantrum or your kid stubs his toe and is crying for 2 hours. Like, on some level, you wanted the interaction. You wanted the push and the pull, the power struggle, no, you're wrong. And a lot of people don't realize that that's what they crave. And they can't just be happy with like sitting with a cup of tea. It's got to be more. Yeah. And it's like, that's your quote in the beginning. Before we started, I mentioned like seeing people as they are, not how you want them to be, but as they are, truthfully. And a lot of the times we create stories about people. Like, I've always wanted like a girlfriend, like a best friend, like, bestie. Oh, yes, like I want women around me so bad that like one woman comes around me and I'm like, oh my God, okay, so oh yes, I'm like, oh geez, and then 2 weeks later I'm like, I get so angry with them, and James is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, they said they wanted a garden and now she's not even planting seeds. And he's like, she lives in an apartment. What do you think? And I'm like, well, I thought. And he's like, what illusion did you have about this person? Why did you do them such a disservice? You put them on this pedestal, but because of that, you didn't allow them to be who they are. And it's real. Like, I see it now so much. It's so funny that like all of this is happening around me, because I'm like, oh, I've made people up in my head. Mm-hmm. And that's not okay for them or for myself, because I get let down because I'm like, come on, guys, let's go. And I'm like 80 steps ahead, and I look back and I'm like,
how dare you be behind me?
Yeah. And it's like, that's not nice. Like, you're just not being nice at that point. Allow them to be who they are. Allow them to
true love.
Yeah. And that's true
unconditional love.
Unconditional love. The depths of the heart, like staying in your heart space, allowing, like, and I feel like it's so funny, like the psychedelic festival movement, because I see the psyop of it. I'm like, oh, you just wanted to have sex with everyone. Oh, okay.
Well, because they think that that's what will bring the fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
It's like they swap it in their minds. They think that's what love is. Yeah. And so they trade it in their minds, and that instead of They won't recognize it until they deal with their traumas, but yeah.
Yeah. It amazes me. And like coming from that realm, it like I've had to go through, and like this is where the whole I feel like I don't have control over my life thing comes in. Is because like I got introduced to cannabis and mushrooms, and then I went into the festival realm, and then I looked back and I was like, oh, what? That's not it. And then I went into like Christian homesteading and I was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, whoa, that's not it either. And then I went through this other loop and I'm like, where are we going now? The other day I asked James, I was like, oh, what's going on? He's like, don't worry, I'll steer the ship. Like, don't even worry about it. I'm going to deal with it. And I was like, but like, we're friends. And he's like, you got friends, you're fine. You're good. And it's so funny because I get into these like down moments of like, oh, I don't have any friends. And then I pop on a Vibrant live stream, or I go into, y'all's comment section, or Michelle's Healing Home. Like that's a big one. Grounded Extracts. Like I go into their comments and I'm like, hey, everybody. And everyone's like, oh, hey, guys. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like you just like Michelle just lives in Washington or Oregon. She lives far away. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I get it. And one thing I told her was I was like, I've been wanting these friends and these allies, and maybe the ally that I'm looking for are really plants. So I'm making a medicinal herb garden, and I'm gonna take one of Kyle's classes and study with him. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I have purpose now that I can give back to my community. And I was talking to Serena, his wife, and I was like, I'm so excited for his class because I feel special. And I'm not the only person in the class. It's on his website. Anyone can go and sign up for it. And I was like, but I feel special. I feel like because I love birth, but I don't know many people around me that had the same viewpoints as I do. And I had a woman message me the other day about my services. And I was like, yeah, but she told me she worked at a hospital. And I did not know how to say this, but I was like, I don't work with anyone that has had, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but like that went through the initiation that was a few years ago, that got the Pope. Like I can't work with anyone that's got the Pope. And she was like, okay, well, can you explain this? Like, why? I was like, oh, because birth is spiritual. If you don't trust yourself and you need someone else to give you
validation, an
innate ability that you already have to heal yourself, like you can heal yourself. You are not broken, but you don't, if you went through that initiation that was a few years ago, like you don't believe that. You think you are broken. You think the world's broken. And I was like, it's a philosophy. We will not vibrate. We will not resonate with one another. It would cause us both too much pain to work together. And that's why. Like, because I would be like, why are you going to get an ultrasound? Why? I would just question. I will never, ever tell a woman what to do. I will just ask for their opinion.
Yeah.
What's going on? And and I connected this whenever I was on Chance's podcast on Interverse, was I think it's related to the idea of original sin. Like the idea of original sin, put it into people's heads that they're already broken. And especially with babies. Like there are some people around here that we know, and they are Orthodox. And she was like, oh, we're all born with original sin. I know that for a fact. So I repent. And Ja was running around. I was like, you think he's sinning? You think he is sinful? Was born with original sin? The most pure being in this room, he's broken? And she was like, oh, well, I'm like, why? And it's interesting because the same woman who's like, Jesus has us all, God has us all, we're all saved. I was like, oh, so you're going to do a home birth? And she was like, no. I was like, why? If you think God has you up in his pocket and everything is divine, you don't trust him. But like, I couldn't do it. And I'm like, not with that attitude, you can't. You're right. No, you're right. You can't do it. Mm-hmm. If you think you can't 100% take it, boom.
Yeah.
You're already broken. But when you tell people it like that, they're like, oh, you think I'm broken now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
you think you're broken. Original sin.
Yeah.
You already said it.
You already said it. I don't know why people say, and so like a couple weeks ago, I was having this whole confusion thing, like it, and I was like, people just need to it was some friends of ours. And I was like, they just need to pick one. Are they going to come out here and farm? Or are they going to stay in the city? Like, I'm a freaking farmer. I garden. I'm like home birth, home cheese, mom. Oh. And James was like, why are you boxing yourself in?
Yes.
Why are you boxing yourself in? Does it make you feel safe now that you have a title? And I was like,
maybe.
Not when you say it like that. and it's just so funny because it took me, and like I told my friend about this. I talked with her yesterday, and I was like, I was so mad at you. And she's like, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, why? Yeah, of course. Why would you? I'm over here in my own mind. Like it, and then I got over it because I saw everyone has their own path. And I've gotten this message so many times in my life, but for some reason, like I've always wanted a tribe. I've always wanted to be like, this is who I am. And these are my member. Yeah, these are my people. This is what we do. And this is how we are.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, that I have doesn't a family. Exist. No, it doesn't exist. It doesn't.
Yeah, because then you like you said, your husband said you box yourself in. That's why I've never called. After I let go of everything, I was like, I don't call myself anything because then that boxes me in to whatever I'm calling myself.
And you have these things that anchor you, like I am a mother and a wife, first and foremost. So when I come into the world, as I interact as a mother and a wife. Why am I boxing myself in? Yes, to an extent. And also I'm like, I'm
those
off
are
limits.
Roles. Those are just roles.
Yes. I got to be home. I got to cook dinner. Like this is who I am so that I can give my family room to be who they are and what they are.
Yeah. That's loving. Right.
It is. And it's freeing because I'm like, oh, like I was really raging against the homemaker for a while because I had been like hula hooping and festivals and going to concerts and like doing drugs and like having fun and having friends, but like not really acquaintances. And then I got pregnant with Ja and I was just like thrown for a loop. And I was like, who am I? I was like, oh, well, you're a mother. And I'm like, and you have so many influencers online that are like, you're not just a mother. You're so much more. Like, you're like, have your me time. Have your me time. Go out and get your nails done and do these things. I haven't worn makeup in like over 8 or 9 years. I don't get my nails done. Like, I just don't do these things. And so I'm like, okay. So that's not my self-care. So what is my self-care? And then you have the realm that's like, oh, self-pleasure. That's your self-care. Masturbation. That's where a woman's power really is. You gotta diddle with a crystal, 100%. That's where you go. And I was like, it doesn't resonate. Oh, so you're closed off. And I'm like, I guess I'm closed off. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so then I was like, who am I? Like what? And James would be like, you coming out into the garden today? And I'd be like, I'm trying to really figure this stuff out. Like I'm really trying to figure out who I am. Okay, I'm a doula. No, I'm a birth keeper. No, I'm a witness. I sit for women. I honor them. I am the ritual holder. All right, I'm going to start a women's group. It didn't work out because I'm so intense. Like James and I are such intense people. They like bring Ritz crackers and I'm like, oh, I see where you are. So funny. So silly. So silly. Because now I'm like, whatever, dude. You like crackers? I like crackers too. Like, no, ain't
Have
no
your
thing.
crackers.
Have your crackers, dog. And and it's just funny because like I'm like, like I discovered all of this past week making cheese. Making and eating cheese was the most spiritual revolution that I've had in such a long time. Because I was like, why do you have a garden? So you can feed your family. Why are you a homemaker? Because the home is where the heart is, where the hearth is, where everyone springs from, where the life springs from. Like, happy wife, happy life, but happy husband, you get a house. Like, I don't, like you work with nature, you work with your natural abilities. And whenever you start raging against them and being like, oh, no, there's got to be more. It's like what we were talking about. I don't know if I had said it, but like God gave us mushrooms, God gave us cannabis, but people want LSD, DMT, ABCD, snuff it up their nose and their butt. Like they want more. And I'm like, dude, there's no more. This is it. But like, I want to get high. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I've used
do it till you're done.
Yeah, do it till you're done. Exactly. And also like I've used cannabis for such a long time throughout my pregnancies. Like I would call it a shake back bowl. I would be like dying, nauseous, I'm on the floor, can't get up, and James would be like, hit it. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, no. And then I hit it and I'd be like, oh my gosh, wow,
I feel better.
I felt like I was dying just now. That's crazy. And it's like it's all here for you.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start like ruminating ruminate animals throw up in their mouth, chew it more, swallow it. They keep throwing it up. They just keep, and then they eat it and they just keep on going. And whenever you ruminate on things, you're just creating this toxicity within you. And you can't shit it out. You just keep throwing it up and then swallowing it again. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. And you're just creating like knots and tightness within yourself. Instead of just being like, oh, I use this as medicine. I use this, like mushrooms help me so much postpartum because I felt like I was going insane at one point with 2 kids. And I never knew what like overstimulation was until I had like a toddler screaming because he's happy and then a baby screaming because he pooped himself. And I'm just like,
too much.
Gosh. And I would microdose and it gave me enough space inside of my mind to where I could see the thought and the emotion and the feeling and be like, oh, I know that one. Okay, cool. So what do you need, baby? Okay, you need your water. All right. What do you need, baby? Oh, you pooped. All right, let's change this. Let's do it.
I love that. That's awesome.
So helpful.
Wow.
So great. Yeah. And it's funny because like throughout my time abusing these things in the festival realm, going homesteader Christian and being like, I
can't do that.
I can't do that. And then like coming out of it and being like, oh, yeah, time and a place.
Yep.
Oh, I understand. Like,
absolutely.
Who am I to judge someone else's journey? This works for me.
Exactly.
This works for me. This is what I do. And I like it.
It works.
Sorry if you don't. Yeah. It took a long time for me to like not care what other people thought. I'm the youngest. So I have an older sister, middle, and then I'm the baby. And through my time living life, I just wanted, like, they would go play hide and seek and not come find me. Big sister stuff. I mean, everyone, if you have siblings, you know the roles. And so I think throughout my life, I just wanted to be liked. I wanted people to invite me places. And I was. And like, I was super cool in the festival realm and was super cool with the people that I was super cool in the festival realm, super cool in the homesteading Christian realm. And through realizing like what I truly like, I was like, oh, if you change yourself to be in one group or another, you're a chameleon. You're not, and it's not like a chameleon in a good way in a sense, I guess, but how I see it, so I'm like, oh, you're people pleasing. Like you're not being your true authentic. Yeah, you're not being yourself. Like I remember talking to women who wanted to do, or like that would be like, oh, I'm going to go to the hospital. And I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Do you want me to help you out? I can be your doula in a hospital. And now I'm like, bad idea. I'm not your person. Like if you want to do that, that's on you. I will not step foot in a hospital. Not who I am. Yeah. Like if, it's so funny that changing who you are to meet the people around you, you're only bolstering their ego and you're diminishing yours. Like you're being this way is great, which like, yeah, being whoever they are is great because that's whoever they are. But who are you? Mm-hmm. What do you have to bring? Who is your individuated, beautiful spark? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see everyone follow the leader. I want to see like if you don't exercise the gifts that God gives you, you're wasting your time here. You're not doing what you need at all. You're just another round for you. I don't know if there's like I don't know if reincarnation's real. I don't know. But I'm like, you're sure just circling. You're not like going up in a spiral. That's how I view it. It's like everyone gets stuck in these the
revolutions.
Circle. Yes. And then it's like you jump up higher in consciousness and then you're here and then you keep going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's at the top, but when you get at the top of the ladder, get off. Because if you stay on the ladder, you're just going to keep going up and down. When you get the message, hang up the phone. And that's where I get always is I'm like, okay, cool. So you learned all of this. What are you doing with it? Oh, well, I'm still doing same old. Like I'm still, we all, whatever. I'm not even going to go into it. But it's like
those who know don't speak and those who speak don't know.
It took me a really long time to learn the pearls to swine thing. Cause I'd be like, oh, but like, what if I'm the vehicle that they should know it as? And I'm like, I can't explain this well. I don't know. If you obviously can't hear it. Like
I'm the same way.
I was talking to my mom the other day and about this whole confusion thing and being a mom and just not knowing what's going on. And she was like, Elise, what's going on? And I was like, I just know too much. I know too much, Mom. Like, she's like, I know you went through your whole conspiracy theory thing. And I'm like, you don't understand. Why do you drink tap water, Mom? Like, it's so funny. And as it came out, I just laughed at myself. So I was like, it's not that big of a deal, dude. Like, you can know these things and just know them.
Yeah.
Just know them. How does it fit within you? Where are you vibrating? Where are you resonating?
Right. Yeah. I've had those moments that you have where you learn all these things and you're like, but I drink this kind of water, and why can't, why are you drinking this kind of water? It's like, I can't tell people stuff. It's just like, and you know what? They're alive, it's not killing them yet. So clearly it's for me to experience that ego thing and like let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah. There was this woman that she wanted to get pregnant. She wanted my advice. And I was like, I see you use Lysol wipes. Maybe don't use Lysol wipes. Like there's so much in Lysol. And she was like, dude, it got to the point where I'd like go to her house and she'd like hide her Lysol wipes. And I was like, I didn't realize that this was such a thing. I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know that I was causing you so much pain telling you about Lysol wipes. And the homeschool co-op that we're a part of now, it's like a bunch of moms that got together and do like, it's called like wild and free homeschooling. And it's a mixture of all the different homeschool methods. So like classical learning, Waldorf, Charlotte Mason, like it's just an amalgam of things.
Yeah.
And I'm telling them this story because my mom was like, You can't cut people off just because they don't eat organic. You can't cut people off just because they use Lysol wipes. And I'm like, but you don't. And I'm telling the women here this. And I was like, yeah, my mom told me that I shouldn't cut people off if they don't eat organic and use Lysol wipes and like da da da. And they were like, Lysol wipes. And I was like, my God, oh, thank you. I'm not going to be worried about my son's endocrine system when he comes over to your house. Like, wow. And it's just so funny because like as soon as you drop it, you get like you get the synchronistic moments. You get the people you were always looking for. Like you get the responsibility that you need. Like everyone needs a weight on them to push them. They need something to work up against. And if you don't use it, like if you don't make your own weight of like, I'm going to clean the kitchen, I'm going to cook, like these are my weights. I'm going to clean, I'm going to cook, I'm going to do all the laundry. I got this herb garden I got to do. I want to learn more about herbs and I want to learn more about homeschooling. And so I'm going to step up in our homeschooling co-op. Those are my weights. Before, whenever I didn't see the importance in having a weight on you, my weights were like, why don't these people like me? Why don't I have this? Like, why is my life this? Why are we, like, it's so funny that we're moving into this building because this metal building was like my nemesis. I hated this place. We grew up like, I wanted James. I was like, finish the tiny house. I cannot be in this building. Like that building's for the mushrooms. I was so like, I'm not giving birth in there. And he was like, what if you want to, I was like, oh no, I'm not. And I had him in the bathroom. I was in here most of the time. And I was just raging against my life because I didn't have a center within myself. I didn't make myself the hearth, the home, the heart. And I think a lot of people rage against their life because they haven't found their own center and what that means. Like you don't have to box yourself in or box other people out. Boundaries are so important. This year's been like, last year was my boundary year. This year's my responsibility year. And so the confusion I felt was like, okay, so you have boundaries, but it's not like a brick wall. It's more like the ocean, but you don't want someone coming in. And I always bring it to this because it's so funny. And it's like, but you don't want an open relationship. So like people always are like, oh, but boundaries, you're really cutting yourself off. It's like, you're crazy. Boundaries are great. Yes, they can cut things off, but you can also build a door. You can build a gate. You can have a nice little white picket fence and one entrance, one exit. So you can see who's coming in and you know that they left. And that looks different for everyone. My boundaries are not the same as y'all's boundaries. And that's great. And through talking, we can help each other's. Yeah. Help each other build our fences. Like maybe I want to switch the gate up. Maybe I don't want a white gate anymore. Maybe I want a blue one. Let's work together to figure it out. And there are times where like, I don't even feel like you have to cut people off. I think it happens naturally. And I think
your energy creates it.
Yes, exactly. Like at the end of last year, we lost some friends because I was like, I feel like you're a little ungrateful and I'm just confused. Why are you so ungrateful? And they were like, oh, what? And I was like, James and I talk like this all the time with one another. We're very matter of fact because why? I'm not working against you. Yeah. We're trying to help one another. Why are you being this way? You are so mean. I'm like, I'm just hanging out.
Honest.
Like, I'm just being honest. Like, why? What's going on? And they very dramatically exited themselves from our lives. And we were like, well,
honesty is the best policy.
Yeah, I guess that didn't work. I guess it wasn't supposed to work out. And looking back, I see why. I'm like, oh, okay. I was going in a completely other direction. And it was making you question your worldview. And that's where it got really tight. Okay, I get it now. And
they needed their worldview questioned. It needed to happen that way, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm always like, James, we're so intense. Like, maybe we shouldn't be so intense. Like, man, I think we scare people away. And that's how we got the name The Outpost. Because it's like, we're out here. People are always like, oh, I want to come over. And I'm like, cool, debt is debt. Like, don't get in debt. And they're like, what the fuck? I had to get a house. I'm like, no, you didn't. You could have just lived in a car. And they're like, what the? And I'm like, oh, you coming over? And they're like, probably not. And I'm like, we're gonna garden or something. I'll probably make cheese later, or ice cream if you want to come. And
maybe
it's so funny. Like I'm like, why are we like this? and he's like, we're just hanging out. Like, we're just on the outpost. Like, some people come out here and they see what we're doing and they're like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, I want to come out here more. And then we say some crazy shit like, what, we don't have birth certificates and it's a warehouse receipt and you're selling your soul to Satan. And they're like, oh, you guys are really far out there. We're like, yeah, it's fun. It can be fun if you let it. I don't know. Sorry, I weirded you out so much.
That's hilarious.
Oh my God, this is the best. I love it. This is such great. I just love all your comments, all your commentary. Having a good time.
Yeah, I feel like I don't even need to talk. You're just saying everything that I would say. I'm just like, this
that
is
we
great.
Always say on the show.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
Oh man, I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you sure? Go.
Well, I was just going to say quickly, what you're saying really reminds me of what I'm seeing around me right now, as far as like division and stuff, because we talked about this on a live stream we did. By the time this airs, it would be a couple of weeks ago, but we're talking about division. But it seems like what happened in 2020 got a lot of people together in these groups, and now that pressure is kind of off, it seems that there's no outside there's no outside threat or danger, so people are kind of just attacking each other. It's really crazy. So
yeah, crazy stuff. But I have a question about.
Yeah, we're just out here. It's the same thing. Yeah, like you said, we're just out here. Do your thing, man. Yeah. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah. So I have a question about the ceremonies that you've talked about, the blessing way, the closing of the bones. I had never heard of these. Are they like, where did you get them from? Like, are they pagan? Are they heathen? What are they? Where'd they come from?
I don't know. I think maybe like a blessing way. It might be like Native American, or I really don't know. And then the closing, I don't know where the closing of the bones came from either.
Okay.
But I think that's like South American maybe.
Okay. And where did you hear about them so that you like knew how to, participate in them and stuff?
I follow the Free Birth Society on Instagram, and they had a festival, the Matriarch Rising Festival, and they had a virtual festival. So if you couldn't attend this festival, they recorded, like, the women who spoke at the festival recorded some things, and you could pay and get like a small snippet of them. And that's where I learned the closing of the bones. And the blessing way I learned because a client that I had was pregnant, and she was very sweet, and I wanted to honor her in that way. And my friend, she brought up the blessing way to me. And she actually is so great. I've gotten permission to tell her story. I love her story. She has 3 children. 2 were born within 18 months of one another. She's 38, 39, and her second and her first, she hemorrhaged and bled out. Her second, she like almost died. Everything went black, bleeding out, nothing helped. She had to get a Pitocin shot. She had a home birth. Her midwife was my midwife for Ja. And then she got pregnant again, and moved to North Carolina, and midwifery is illegal in North Carolina. And so she didn't know what she was going to do. And she messaged, she ended up getting in contact with Emily Saldaya from the Free Birth Society. And Emily was her birth keeper. And she was like, I'm a bleeder. What do I do? I like almost died with my second. I hemorrhaged with my first, hemorrhaged so bad with my second. I don't know what, like, fuck do I do? Like, you're not a medical anything. You can't help me if I hemorrhage. And Emily said, oh, so you believe you're a bleeder and that's your story you're holding around. Okay. Can you rewrite your story? Are you a bleeder? And mind you, she's 38, 39. That's technically a geriatric pregnancy. She hemorrhaged both times, almost died the second time, and she's free birthing? That sounds absolutely insane. Her third was the best birth she's ever had. Most magical, beautiful, blissful, everything she could have ever imagined. And so I'm like, what? So it is mental. So it is all in your mind. And she was part of a village prenatal where a lot of the women in there had hemorrhaged. And there was one that had hemorrhage in her past and was like, yeah, you know, I'm just a little nervous. Like, oh, she said she kept talking about it. She kept bringing it up. Like everyone would air their traumas and then kind of leave it alone. But this woman kept bringing it up. She was the only woman that transferred to a hospital. And after hearing her story, and she, as someone I really love, like she's such a wonderful friend and taught me about the blessing way, like taught me about these different avenues of birth. And she found me because her cousin followed me on Instagram, and she started following me on Instagram because she loved my hula hooping videos. And that's how she knows me, as like this hula hooper. And then I said I wanted a home birth, and she had already done it. And it's just nice to have a friend. Like that's why women gather, is because some women have gone through stages of life that other women haven't. And so you get to just show paths. You don't guide, you just show, like, oh, look.
Experiences.
Yes, this is what happened to me. Nothing happened. I had a great birth. But for some reason, when I had this midwife, and she thinks that she feels as though her midwife asked her to get out of the tub too soon. Like she wanted to sit in the tub. But the midwife, like, let's get in bed. Let's get you comfortable. Like, you'll have to clasp the placenta soon. Like, let's just, thinking she's doing good. But it wasn't intuitively what the mother needed or wanted. Wow. And when you get women that have gone through birth and are witnesses for birth, they do have experience and they do have knowledge. So you trust them. And sometimes that trust can be taken in a whole other way. Like with Joffrey.
It overrides your own intuition.
Yes. Yes. Like with Joffrey, we broke my waters. And right before my midwife came in and asked if I wanted her to break my waters, I had already thought it. And I'm like, oh, it was in the air. Like the thought was already in the air. I had been in labor for like 3 days, like so long. And I was put like, yeah, you can push. So I was pushing for like freaking 5 hours, something so crazy. And so I was like, it's so funny. Like I will always remember this. James and I were sitting in the birth tub. He was behind me. And I was just like going through the waves of contractions. And I'm like pushing, nothing's happening. Seriously, nothing's happening. And I like look at James and I'm like, what should I do? And he just laughed at me. He was like, I don't know. What do you want to do? What are you talking to me for? He like ate some mushrooms before too. It's so funny because he's like,
that's
what's
hilarious.
up? Like, I don't know. I was like, I think I want her to break my water. And he was like, all right, tell her to break your water bag. Okay. And that's what a birth witness does. They're the pure spirit. That's just like,
do whatever you feel like doing.
Oh, flip a coin.
Yeah.
Whenever it's in the air, you'll know what you want. And
totally.
Yeah, it's so funny. So funny. And then I had a client, and she was in labor, and it reminded me of my birth and labor with Ja, because her amniotic sac was still attached. Her water hadn't broken at all. And so she's pushing, and it's so crazy because it looked like a pearl was coming out of her, because you just have this stack. Yeah. It's almost blue, white, cream, like beautiful. And she was like, it was just her, her husband, and this other woman, just a friend. And she was like, and she was 21, so young. Mm-hmm. And she was like, can you break it? And I was like, what do you want me to do? Get a toothpick? I don't have anything. A safety pin? A fork? What do you want? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, there's nothing I can, you want me to get a rock? There's nothing I can do. You're just going to have, she was like, it hurts. I was like, I bet you're not pushing a head out. You're pushing a head and a balloon out. That's so intense. I bet it does. And she was so high by the end of it. It was so beautiful. And I was like, oh, that's what I needed. I needed someone to be like, you're good, dude. Nothing. Your baby's fine. You're fine. Mm-hmm. And I always go through this with women, and pain and death and birth and life, and what does it all mean? I'm like, it'll be painful if you want it to be painful. If you if you get off on that, that's it. And whenever I was laboring with Manu, I remember just being like, oh, I see why women want the easy out, because it's like you're in your mind, and you're in this hallway, and you have all of these doors, and you go in one room, and it's like, ow, oh, geez. And some people stay in that room, or you could keep going down the hallway, and you go in this room, and it's absolute bliss. And you're like, oh, this is orgasmic. And sometimes it's too much, and they're like, oh, that was a lot. And then they'll go down another room of just like trust and faith, and oh yeah. But what you don't realize is, like, you are the home, like you are the house. All of the rooms are inside of you already. You don't have to choose. You can choose and leave all the doors open. Let the bliss and the pain, let it all come and wash over you. And I think a lot of women like want a blissful birth, but they don't know what that means. And it's the responsibility of being a woman and embodying that and not being afraid. Like with Ja's birth, I remember being like, I feel like I'm pooping. And James was like, you're pooping. Like 100%. Like he's in the tub with me. They have a fish net, and he's fishing out my poop from the pool. And I was like when couples tell me, I'm like, oh, I tell them this story. And sometimes the women are like, I poop with the door closed. I'm like, you better take the door off the hinges. Cause like your butthole's gonna get crazy, dog. Like you have to be open with the people that are around you. And then with Manu, I was like in the tub, and I was just like, oh gosh, I think I gotta poop. James was like, poop? What are you doing? And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I like sat on the toilet and I pooped, and I was like, oh yes, that felt so good. And I was like, the baby's right here, James. Right. I was like, I don't want to put the baby in my poop. And he was like, flush the toilet. And I was like, oh yeah, it flushes. I was like, yes. I was so stoked about it. It's hilarious. And it's like, you have to be that comfortable with yourself and with the people that you're birthing with, because it gets that transparent. Like I remember whenever we had Ja, and I'm naked the whole time. And my mom was like, oh, your midwives are coming, like you want to put a little shirt on. And I was like, I don't want anything touching me right now. Like it was so funny because whenever I was pregnant, I was like, James, you have to do these. We have to practice. I need you to practice with me. I need you to practice back compressions, practice like rebozoing my hips. Like I need the counter pressure. Like we have to practice. And then I'm in labor and he's like, okay, here I go. And I was like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Seriously, don't touch me. And he'd like go and massage my shoulders. And I'd be like, get your hands off me. I love you, but I don't want, and like all your practicing, all your visioning, all the things that you do are not going to prepare you for the moment that is birth. Like with Manu, I was just like walking around in a robe, peeing on myself. Like I called some friends and I was like, will you bring me fruit? Like, I just want fruit and I need a thermometer because I want to make cheese. And they brought me stuff and I was just like walking around. I had Crocs on, easy to just spray off, like just hanging out. And that, like, whenever I first told my mom I wanted a home birth, she was like, I was like, I just want to be comfortable. She's like, oh, you're not going to be comfortable. And I was like, whatever. Even if I'm not comfortable, I want a pillow. I want a pillow. I don't want to wear a robe that someone just died in. Like, I don't want to be in bright lights. I don't want anyone coming in that I don't like their energy at all. I don't even want someone being like, you need another pillow. Like, I want the people there to intuitively know what I need at all times. And that's possible because it is a vibration. I had this client and like, huge. She told like the whole time she's in labor, we're doing like eye to eye meditation. We're both just staring at each other. And then she wants to get in the pool. She wants to get in the tub and she gets in the tub and like her mouth opens to say, I have a cramp in my leg. And as she's talking, my hand automatically goes to exactly where the cramp is in her leg. And I'm just massaging like that. That's
amazing.
High these states get. And I always like, some women will ask me like, men have these rituals and initiations, like men do, I don't know, like why are only men allowed to be priests? Why are only men allowed to have these like crazy things? Why are there so many men philosophers? Why are like Nietzsche, Manly P. Hall, like all the Masons, like all these things? Why are men always the ones? I'm like, because we don't need that. Our initiations are built into our bones. They're built into our blood. You want to go sit in a hallway, a black and white checkered hallway for 2 hours, listen to someone talk about what ifs on life and what God really is? Or do you want to be that? Or do you want to be creation? Do you want to know God? Do you want to bleed and be a woman? Or do you want to sit and take notes about, I don't even know. I'm like Prometheus. I don't know. Like, it's fun. It's fun. I get it. I like learning about this stuff too. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. When I listen to Interverse, when I listen to Chance or Gabe talk, I'm like, what? And James
goes over my head a lot.
Dude, James is nodding his head. And I'm like, how long have you known this? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, where does it fit inside? How are you thinking about dinner? Like, I'm hungry right now. You're thinking about gold and alchemy? Like, I want to learn. I'm just confused because I've got other stuff on my hands. That's it. Like our initiations, like men are our first bleed and being a maiden, transitioning into the mother, honoring that, honoring the mother, honor the mother. Like if you're listening to this, honor the mother. Like, geez, guys, it's hard. It's so hard. And as you honor the mother, you honor the father, you honor the children. All of this happens. You get what that is. Whenever you go through the rites of passage, whenever you bring bread to the woman that just had the baby, you clean her kitchen, you wash her feet, you do the work. Like whenever women first bleed, when they had their first period, like I remember my mom being like, oh, I got little bitty tampons, just shove it in there. And now it's like, I don't even, dude, people are wild. I'm like, are you drinking it now? That makes no sense to me. You don't have to go that far. You don't have to go that far. You can just, from earth to earth, from dust to dust, honor your cyclical nature as a woman. I don't know what any of this means. Like, that's one thing my big confusion was like, I was talking to Michelle and I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like the blood mysteries, like what's going on? Are we like, I know someone that drank her blood. That just seems gross. Like a tablespoon of blood will make you throw up. I'm so confused. And she was like, she's like, find your path.
To each his own.
To each their own. That doesn't have to be it. She's like, you can give it back to the earth. Blood's a good fertilizer. Like James and I, whenever I was pregnant, peed in a bucket because I have HGH running through my veins, and that's what we use to fertilize our gardens. Like we use yourself to inform yourself always, but there is the sacred and there is the profane. It just is. Like I think there are some avenues that are created. Discordianism. Do y'all know what Discordianism is?
I don't think so.
It's like, oh, geez. I wish James was here. He could explain it. It's a concept that I read about in, man, what is that book? Whatever. It's these people that followed Aleister Crowley. And Discordianism is like purposefully making people think something is sacred just so that they go into the profane. Like purposefully doing that. I thought I had the guy's name, but it slipped out of my fingers. And I think a lot of the times people get stuck in that. They're like, oh, this is the way. And they go into it through the sacred, and then they want more. So then they bypass it, and it leads into the profane. Like you want to fully embody your womanhood. You want to honor yourself as you bleed. You want to honor yourself as a mother. But at some point you become too obsessed with it that you just go right past the honor and you go into like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah, it reminds me, we say all the time, we quote Ram Dass where he says every method is a trap.
Every trap is a method.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Love it. The trip that I had where it was like tarot cards, I was reading Be Here Now. And he had in Be Here Now, Ram Dass is a whole trip, a whole guy.
Yeah.
But old Dick Alford.
Yeah,
but he in Be Here Now, there's a bookcase, and in the bookcase, it has like the titles of books. And so instead of like I Ching, it's I Ching. It's like all the titles of the books are pointing you to yourself. Like, oh, who am I? Where am I? What's going on? Oh. And I remember like really sitting down and reading the books on the bookcase and just laughing and being like, oh, you're everything you do, every card you pull, every time you throw sticks, you're just trying to figure out who you are. And you're living who you are. You don't have to write it down. You are that. And like now I have a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation of like tarot cards. I would love to get gifted some. I'm not going to go buy any because I got gifted. So I was in college for sociology. I was like, I tell people if I wouldn't have met James, I would have been like a bisexual stripper in New Orleans. Hands down, 100%. And I went to school for sociology. And my teacher, who was like this crazy feminist, self-proclaimed druid, she gave me my first deck of tarot cards, and it was a mushroom fairy deck. And it's super cool. And I ended up giving that deck to someone after I had this trip because I was like, oh, I don't need this deck. And now I'm like, I kind of wish I would have kept it because I get it now.
Yeah.
Like there are people that use these things and try to divine the future. They try to tell you, oh, well, your job, you should just quit your job and like you should do all this stuff. Like that's not how they're meant to be used. But I think it's the gatekeeper. Everything has to have a gatekeeper. And you could call it the gatekeeper. You could call it like getting stuck in another pasture. Like, oh, the farmer let you out of this pasture, but you don't realize you're just in another pasture. You don't realize that you left Christianity, you left the Catholic Church, and now you're in Buddhism. You don't
it's
realize
like the cults. It's like you left one cult to join another one.
Yeah. We vended at a yoga festival a few months ago, and I couldn't help but laugh because I was like, oh man, now you just got hippies pray Hari Hari Krishna and doing all this stuff. And it's like, but if you were to bring up God and Jesus, they'd be like, not that guy. And I'm like, same guy.
Same thing.
Same thing. Hilarious. Because now I can see it and I'm like, oh
yeah,
I see what, and I always say, I see where you're sitting inside of your own mind. I get it. Like I like for people to point out to me as well, if it's in good nature and in truth, where they feel I'm sitting inside my own mind. Because we're here to shine lights and help people see their shadows and all of these other things. Yes. We don't, I guess, in not love. Really. Yes, in love. You can't help anyone else, but you can just shine light and be like, oh, you know, why? Why do you think that? Why do you think you'd be safer in a hospital? Why? Why do you think you can't give birth? What? It's just questions. Like, I'm not pointing to anything. And like, there was a time in my life where I did poke and point and be like, you don't even get it. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I don't get it. I'm still learning. Like, it's so funny. I followed the Free Birth Society and like pushed them and pushed them and pushed them. And I realized that I was making them a sacred cow. And I was like, oh,
putting them on a pedestal.
I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And you're all still people. You're all still people.
Absolutely.
Am I going to leave my farm and go dance around naked in a forest with a bunch of women? No. Would I want to? I would. Would I spend several $1,000s for it? I'd buy a freeze dryer first. That's where I get. I'm always like, I'll buy a freeze dryer. I'd like to. I really would. But freeze dried fruit is delicious. And it would benefit me and my family and my community. There's other things, like I'm very rooted where I am. And I think that's how it works. I think that like our chakra system, like you start at the root and you go up. And whenever you start getting up here, things can feel more intense, more mind games. But you're rooted. So you have a strong base. And so you can now vacillate between these chakras to figure out what's going on.
It takes me back to the Ace of Swords that we pulled earlier. It's like the mental stuff, and it's like the beginning of the cycle of learning about all that. But it's just like everything we're talking about is so synchronistic. It's just crazy. Like the stuff, even stuff you've said is on shows that we haven't even released yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
like
all
that you've been saying stuff like that, and I'm like, she had like Brandon and I have heard it because we recorded yesterday, but you haven't heard this. So it's just insane. It's crazy. One of the things that you said about like not telling people what to do, but you know, sharing, just asking questions and sharing experiences. That's something that I like to do on this show, because we don't claim to know that we know the answers to everything. But when we have people on to share their own experiences, we allow others to hear those various ideas, those various thoughts, and make their own, draw their own conclusions and make up their own minds about certain things, and that maybe take them on a path that, you know, they've been looking for or they needed to hear. But we're not, you know, we don't ever tell anybody what to do, or, you know, we don't claim that we know the answer to everything. We just speculate. We ask questions. We allow people to share experiences. And I think that's kind of, you were talking about that too. So I feel like we're kind of on the same page about that.
Yeah. Allow people to take people for their word. Let them show you where they are. Because whenever you start like putting words in their mouth or like I just have their back. It's like, well, you let them have their own backs.
Yes.
Let them do it. Like and this is like, well, shouldn't I stand my ground and hold it firm and like push? I'm like, I don't know. That was my big confusion, where I was like, I'm cutting them off as friends right now. They're not out here farming. They're not my friend. And my mom was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, you should be here. Like, I was so upset. I was like ready to just burn bridges. And then I'm happy that I didn't, because it doesn't matter. It takes so much energy to burn a bridge rather than just being like, oh, that's where you are. I'll let you be, because it's not my responsibility. I'm not over here trying to set fire to anything. The most I'm like, I got stuff to plant. We got trees that need to go on the ground. Our goats are going to give birth in March. Like, James is cleaning up the wood so we can have pigs. Like, I'm like, all right, there's other things that I can put my energy towards than just like just mental masturbation. Like, oh yeah, this person, oh, they did that. I'm like, dude, it costs too much. At the end of the day, it costs too much to be thinking about and pondering somebody else, whenever the best thing you could do is whatever's happening inside of your home. How's your home? Do you need to do laundry? You don't want to do laundry right now. That's fine. I don't want to do the dishes like ever.
Yeah.
But they got to get done. So maybe I'll go outside. There's this farmer, and he said the reason why he does market gardening. The reason why my farm looks so good, because my number one rule that I tell everyone is, you see a rock, you pick up a rock. You see a weed, you pick the weed right there. It's now. It's either now or now. It's now, or it's now later. Either way, the later is still the now. So just do it whenever you see it. And one thing I've always done is, like, if something lowers my vibration, like if I see someone post something on social media and I have a bad thought, even if they're my friend and I'm just having a tough time with them, I'll automatically delete them. Because before, I'd be like, oh, I have a bad thought. I really need to work on this. I have trauma. I'm going through something. I got to work on it. Let me send them love. But I would always get in these bad moods. Like, I couldn't conjure the love inside my mind until I deleted them. I gave myself space, and I got over my pity party victim mentality. And I'd be like, oh, okay, what's this person up to? And then I look at their page and I'm like, I'm still not ready. Maybe I'm not meant to follow them. Maybe I'm meant to follow a different gardening page, or a different homesteader page, or a different whatever. Or maybe I'm not even supposed to follow the page. Maybe I'm supposed to pick up a book. Like, as soon as you feel the negative emotion, grant yourself grace, take it away, and deal with it with your hands in the earth. Deal with it in a different way, because whenever you start just like consuming their information, then you're ruminating. And you're not letting it pass. You're not letting yourself discharge any of the emotions. You're just vacillating between like hate and slight acceptance. You're like, I guess this is fine. It's so silly. And I didn't get any of these downloads, these realizations, until I actually like got myself in the garden, until I got myself doing things. Like, you can't move the stuff in here. I feel like you can move the stuff in here whenever you do it physically. Like, you move like that's kind of like what Tai Chi is. That's what like different movement meditations are, is like you feel stagnant up here. So you move your body, and then it starts changing around you. If outside is inside, then just make something beautiful. Just make something beautiful. You don't have to burn it all to the ground. Like, you can't override the system that is. You can't burn it to the ground. You can only create something better. You can create something more beautiful. why do we live the life that we do? Why did we live in a tiny home? Why do we sleep on the floor? Why do we do these things? It's because we don't want to get in debt and we're willing to be patient to create beauty. Like, it's the long game. We're playing chess, not check. We're playing chess. The first time I played a board game with James, it was Connect Four. And this dude whooped my ass every time. And I was like, we're playing Connect Four, dude. What are you doing? And he was like, it's a mind game. It's like chess. I see the moves you're going to make. And I'm like, it's not chess, it's Connect Four. We're at a coffee shop, for goodness sake. And he kept just beating me. I was so frazzled. And then I realized, like, it's the long game. Everything's a long game. When you make the quick knee-jerk reactions, you're not thinking about the long game. You're not thinking about, like, you're not planning out your life. You're just like, fuck it. I don't care. Like, people usually aren't bad. They just get in such high emotional states of confusion that they start lashing out. It's like some people are bad. Some people really just suck. Well, I mean, you can't help them. That's just their path. And you see that and you're like, oh, okay, not that. And then you get to the people that have no root. And this was my whole, maybe y'all can help me with this. This was my confusion. Was like, if you're a people pleaser, you're lying and you should be cast and ostracized. And my mom was like, what? And I'm like, James, they're people pleasers, they're liars. And he was like, yeah, but not really. And I was like, you're not doing what you like. You say
you're lying
you want
to yourself.
This. Yeah, you're lying to yourself. Exactly. And he was like, too much. Like, yes and no. Yeah. And why are you so worried about it? And I was like, because they're lying. He was like, are they murdering your child? Are they out there killing someone? Are they out there, like, even if they were out there, like, defaming you on anything, like, is it worth it? And I was like, yeah. He's like, no, it's not. Do the dishes. What's for lunch? And I'd be like, I don't know what's for lunch. I didn't think about it. I'm too busy thinking about this. Yeah. And that's where it gets. It's like, why are you thinking so much? Why are you thinking so much? You're not working from your heart. You're working from the monkey mind. You can't stop yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys.
That's so funny.
100%.
Something you said earlier reminded me of just like also when people say things like, but if you know something that's going to harm these people, like you should tell them, like you should warn them because they're in danger. And you're like, what if they're not ready to hear it? Like if they're ready to hear it, I would get a feeling inside me to speak to them about it in a loving way, or they would have already approached me, or the message would have already gotten to them. It's just like, I'm not going to go out of my way to just like be one of those people on the streets that's holding a megaphone with a sign and like yelling, you need Jesus. It's like, people aren't going to get the message that way. They're just not. Yeah. How many people have been saved that way? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how many people have they really reached? Have they really reached anyone? You know what I mean? It's like, you got to come to think of it like, do they reach people that way? And why do they keep doing that if they don't? Like, I'm just asking the question because I'm just like, really?
But it's also like I use the example of Prometheus just in passing. And that reminded me of it. It's like he brought the fire from the gods down here. It's like, was that really a good thing? Like what and that's what the gods were saying. The gods were like, how dare you? Well, they needed to know. It's like, if they needed to know, they would have figured it out themselves.
Yes.
And as much and it's so funny. It comes from like an ego space. Like as much as I want to be the guru, as much as I want to work in birth and be like, I know, like, that's why I have no clients right now. Cause I'm like, I'm confused. I'm like, I want to guide and to lead. I want to help women. I want to start these women's circles. I want it. I do. But I don't want to be the guru. I don't want people to think that I know it all, because I don't. I have a lot of information and I love to share it. I want to bring women together. I want it so bad, you guys. Like maybe it's a bad thing how much I want it. But I'm like, I'm not the dude. Like it'd be fun to be the dude. I don't want it to get to my head though. I don't know if it would get to my head because I'd be like, y'all fucking figure it out. I don't know. Jeez, guys.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, like Crow says, we've probably passed the second hour, but but I love it. I'm having such a great time.
Yeah.
Brandon, did you have anything to say?
I probably have to go back and listen to this. There's just so much. I mean, like Sharon was saying, you're nailing everything that we really talk about. So, I feel like if I say anything, I'll just be like trying to decorate a cake that's already beautiful, like, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, beautiful. No, I resonate 100%. I mean, I guess the one thing I could say is that I feel like you're right. You reach a point, or that's what I want to say. There's a saying in the Tao that says the best leaders are the ones where the people look around and say, yes, we did it all by ourselves, like, so exactly, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, where can people find you and all your lovely products, or if somebody is looking for your assistance in that other area with the birthing and stuff, where could they find you?
The Outpost Homestead on Instagram. That's where I am most of the time. I do consultations. We can just talk, hang out. I can help you virtually with whatever you need. If you want to email us, familyfungi.net, you can email me through there. I mostly work through our mushroom business, which is Family Fungi, and then my Instagram is just fun. It's just like what I post on.
All right, and just so people know, they sell a bunch of different mushrooms, like for eating and stuff. We're not just talking about psilocybin here.
Yeah, we sell medicinal, gourmet edibles. So we have like oyster mushrooms, dehydrated mushrooms, and then medicinal mushrooms like reishi, turkey tail, chaga. We have a tincture. Our flagship tincture is Remedy. We do mushroom coffee. We do different medicinal powders and stuff, capsules. We have a lot of other cool things in the works. We do grow blocks. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. And we can link the 2 episodes that her husband James was on. I don't remember the numbers, but we can link those. And awesome. Yeah. But Brandon, do you want to shout out the chat?
Yeah, what's going on, chat? So just in case, we said this earlier when you were running around for a little bit, we just said every Thursday night at 8:33 p.m. we premiere these episodes, 8:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have a nice little chat going on. So if you'd like to join us, if you're watching this sometime in the future, every Thursday, come on in, hang out. We have the best chat. Recently, somebody in our chat said that this is the only chat on the internet that doesn't make me want to kill myself. So
great compliment.
That's going to be like, yeah, we should have took a picture of that and put it like on a reviews page. Like, these are our reviews, like this is the only chat. So yeah, come hang out, have a lot of fun. If you'd like to find more about us, it's morelawsmoreproblems.com. That's my website. Click on the Over Sharon tab and you could support us there. But the best way to support us really is to just hang out in the chat. If you can, comment on our videos, like, share, subscribe. Let us know how you're feeling. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk about, we always do that. So just comment below. And what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That once you start over Sharon,
then you totally stop being a Karen.
That's right.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.
Next week.